Shadow the Hedgehog is one of the worst games in the entire Sonic series. Or so says the popular opinion. Personally, I really love the game. It's actually one of my favorites. I would get into the reasons why, but I think I'll save that for my inevitable review on the game. The one thing that really interested me regarding Shadow 2005 was its dark and edgy tone. As an adult, it's not as dark as it appears to be and is more cringeworthy if anything, but as a kid, this was insanely cool. As I grew older, I always wondered what Shadow the Hedgehog would have been like had it received a teen rating, and much to my surprise, that's what the developers were planning. Shadow the Hedgehog was meant to be a much darker game, with a multitude of changes occurring throughout development. So in celebration of the Year of Shadow, we're going to be taking a look at the beta of Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, Shadow the Hedgehog began its conception shortly after the development of Sonic Heroes. Many young Sonic fans sent letters to current prison inmate Yuji Naka asking to give Sonic a gun. He didn't think that giving Sonic a gun would be fitting for the character, however it may have fit well for Shadow, and that's how development began. Shadow's core design was mainly inspired by the likes of the Terminator movies, Underworld, and Constantine, giving it a more darker tone meant for a more older audience. This tone change was quite controversial though, so much so that fans thought the original announcement of the game was an early April Fool's joke.
Like many people, when the first ever trailer debuted for this game, I seriously thought this was an April Fool's joke. The concept was just so absurd. Shadow the Hedgehog packing heat? Why?
Speaking of which, the game was first announced to the public at the March 2005 Walk of Game event. This trailer was done in very poor taste as it starts out with a gameplay montage of past Sonic games, with Shadow the Hedgehog shooting the screen showing said gameplay. Now, as a kid, I thought this looked awesome, but now looking back at this as an adult, yeah, it's easy to see why fans saw this as an early April Fool's joke. But putting that aside, this trailer would show off a lot of gameplay differences from the final game. The levels shown in this trailer are Glyphic Canyon and Death Ruins. Shadow's air shoes don't light up upon moving, the HUD is a lot more basic looking, there seems to be a death animation that plays when you hit flying enemies like the gun beetles. The alien's blood is pink instead of green, and the camera doesn't rotate around Shadow when he performs Chaos Blast. Aside from that, the game doesn't have that many differences from the final in this trailer. Now, before I talk about the E3 build, I need to talk about the state of the E3 build today, because it is technically found, but it hasn't been dumped yet. A post was made on Last Minute Continues stating that Hidden Palace has gotten a hold of 2 demo discs specifically made for E3. Sadly, however, there hasn't been any updates since that post was made, so whether or not we actually get to play the E3 build, only time will tell. With that said, there are still some gameplay pieces captured from E3 that we can analyze. In this build, you can play 3 levels and 1 boss. Sadly, however, the only footage I could find showed off Westopolis and a very small clip of Sky Troops, making the contents of the other levels unknown at this point. The majority of this footage shows off Westopolis, and there are a ton of differences. For one, the level was cut down to be way shorter, making the mission objectives way shorter. Shadow's air shoes still don't light up, Sonic's aura is orange instead of blue, the textures for the gun soldiers is different, their health bar also turns red when killed, the poison fruit things have a different texture, and the Chaos Emerald at the end of the level is white instead of blue. There's a whole bunch of other differences too, but honestly, those are the major ones. One key difference regarding the E3 build is that the build was supposed to have a much darker tone as the developers were going for a teen rating, which can be seen in the early cutscenes. One thing that is commonly known about Shadow 2005 is that the game was originally supposed to have a darker tone that led to the game having a teen rating. However, this was later changed down the line when the ESRB introduced the E10 Plus rating for video games. Regardless, we can still see tons of remnants from this particular version of the game. In fact, there are some in the final game. For example, in the intro cutscene, Shadow says this line.
Just what was that all about?
but judging by an early screenshot and the fact that Shadow lip syncs this, he was originally supposed to say,
"Just what the hell is that all about?"
This is just a small remnant of the vulgar language that was originally supposed to be in the game. According to an interview with Jason Griffith, the voice of Sonic and Shadow at the time, he recorded a whole bunch of alternate lines that were supposed to be a lot more vulgar.
Well, here's the funny thing. When we were recording it, they didn't know what the rating was going to be yet, so somewhere on a DAT tape out there is me as Shadow saying a lot worse than what made it into the game. So we did the what they like to call the just in case recordings. Let's get that just in case. Let's have you say this just in case. I even think I swore as Sonic, but it just didn't make it into the game.
There was also going to be a lot more death shown in the original game. In the final game, where we see a gun soldier shoot Maria, it was originally going to show Maria falling to the ground, whereas in the final game, the screen just fades to white. In the intro cutscene, the song Who I Am was originally going to play instead of I Am All of Me, which, while it is a good song, I do think I Am All of Me was the better choice for the intro. However, this version of the intro has never been seen. However, damn, why did I say that twice? We do have a publicly available earlier version of the intro without I Am All of Me playing in the background. This version would have different shots and camera angles not seen in the final game, including this shot of a gun soldier getting shot and killed, and the intro was going to play out more like an actual scene rather than an AMV, which I'm kinda mixed on. I am nostalgic for the final intro, but it would have been nice to see it like this. There are also some other alternate cutscenes like the Independence Day scene and the scene where Doom takes Shadow into space, where Shadow once again says, "What the hell?" Now that's all for pre-release content, but we also have some miscellaneous bits of early textures and screenshots worth showing off. Here is a compilation of those images set to the tune of an earlier version of All Hail Shadow. And that is the beta of Shadow the Hedgehog. As someone who actually likes the dark and edgy tone that this game took, I'm actually kinda bummed out that they didn't go for a full-on teen rating, because the game feels like it's holding back a lot, and what results in that is a completely cringeworthy game with a nonsensical story and even worse writing. With that said though, this video doesn't really go that deep because the beta of Shadow the Hedgehog isn't really that well documented. However, if any of you are looking for some more Shadow the Hedgehog beta content, I highly recommend you check out the channel Dream Syntax. This individual has documented so much beta content regarding Shadow the Hedgehog, and has even made a mod for the game called Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded, which I highly recommend because it's a really good mod. Aside from that though, the beta of Shadow the Hedgehog will remain a gaming mystery. Before I end this video, I want to give a special shout out to all of my channel members, TriRealm, Peter Jensen, and Skooma Denisen. I am the Loweton17. Thanks for watching.